Hey there, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Patriots Roundtable. My name is Alex Barth. We are joined this week by Mike Dussault of Pat's Propaganda. We'll be breaking down the Patriots-Raiders matchup for you a little bit here, getting into the Pro Bowl ballots, which came out this week. And frankly, Mike, for me, the ballots are more interesting than the game itself. And we'll take your questions later on in the show. Mike, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's nice Friday, middle of the football season. This is when we see the best football, so I always enjoy this time of year. It's Thanksgiving's coming up, so we know it's all about to get real as the playoffs approach.
We've said it a bunch of times on the show. As October turns to November, that's when the Patriots really become the Patriots, and we're even into, at this point, November turning into December. As the Patriots kind of hit this tough stretch here. Just want to remind everybody, if you have any questions for me or Mike, you can put them in the left there on the chat. We'll be more than happy to get to those in addition to our usual content. But I want to start here, Mike. The Patriots this week up against the Oakland Raiders, a team that's been very disappointing. A lot of people thought this would be the game for the AFC down in Mexico City. It doesn't look like it'll be quite that. But the one player on the Raiders who hasn't disappointed this year is Khalil Mack. He's having another outstanding season. And the Patriots maybe are facing the two best pass rushers back-to-back weeks in the league in Von Miller and now this week against Mack. How much do you think, because this is what I'm left wondering, they're similar players, which you don't often see two guys with such a similar skill set in the same division. Do you think a lot of the Patriots game plan from last week against Miller will carry over this week against Mack?
Sure. I mean, and I think a lot of the Patriots' strengths as we're starting to see emerge with just the balance on offense. I think that's what's really just most exciting to me. I've wrote an article this week just kind of examining that a little bit. You know, the loss of Edelman seemed devastating, but they've really been leaning on Dion Lewis, Rex Burkhead, as we saw last week. So I think being able to lean on that running game, you saw last week with Von Miller. I think he dropped into pass coverage, I think like a record number of times for him this season. So, I mean, anytime a guy like Von Miller is dropping into coverage, it's a good thing. So absolutely, I think, it's going to be the same kind of thing with Mack. And, it just goes back to simple football. If you're running game and you're able to pass to your running backs and keep that front seven kind of off balance, the Patriots will be in position to succeed. If they get into a throwing game, that's where it can get dicey.
And I'm curious what Adrian Waddle's going to bring this week, because they at times left him alone last week with Von Miller. A lot more than I thought they would. A lot more than I, going into the game, would have been comfortable with your backup tackle. But if he can handle Mack this week, and it looks like Cannon will not play, at least the latest report I've seen, some solid back-to-back games against the two best pass rushers in the league. You talk about Nate Solder maybe being on his way out, and who knows where Tony Garcia is. The Patriots low-key could have at least an emergency fill-in for Nate Solder next year in Adrian Waddle. I don't want to, go too far off the deep end, but if he puts together back-to-back good games against these two guys, that has to tell you something going into next year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for me, I never like to turn the page to the offseason too quickly. But, you look at Solder and as well as Waddle, as well as Fleming, all three of their contracts are up this year. So there's going to be some kind of interesting maneuver. I mean, we've only had one left tackle transition during their time, under Brady going from light to Solder. And that was, just like you draw it up. So it's interesting with Waddle. My one kind of question would be, in the preseason, when we didn't see Solder in there, we usually saw Fleming playing left tackle, which is still kind of strange because I kind of always viewed Waddle as a little bit more of an athletic guy. But for whatever reason, they seem to like him on the right side right now. So it's definitely a fluid situation, and it's going to be one of the top storylines to monitor. But, every game that he turns in where he plays well, he's definitely earning himself a little bit of money with that next contract.
Let's take a look at the secondary. As much as the Raiders have struggled at times this year, you still have to respect their passing game. Michael Crabtree, Amari Cooper, obviously the kid out of Alabama. We saw them step up last week against Denver, and it seems to be a similar situation. I don't want to come off like I'm comparing Derek Carr to Brock Osweiler, because I'm not. Carr is a much better quarterback, but he hasn't played up to that level we thought he would this year, and it seems to be a case where you really have the receivers carrying the quarterback, as opposed to the other way around, like you see so much of around the NFL. I want to start with this. Last week seemed to be such a tailor-made matchup for Stephon Gilmore, Demaryius Thomas. It was a big receiver, but a guy who's not going to be too athletic. He's not too quick. If you get your hands on Demaryius Thomas, you're going to force him off his spot. You're going to force him into a bad game. That's Gilmore's game, is to play physical at the line of scrimmage, beat these guys up early, and take them away mentally for the end of the game. He did that well last week. I don't see that guy as much in this game. What do you think they do with Stephon Gilmore? Because I'm still scratching my head with this.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're going to pay Stephon Gilmore that much money. I mean, you would hope that he's going to be able to kind of take any top receiver, regardless of what their playing style is. And you don't if you're paying them, I mean, more money than they've ever paid any quarterback in terms of cornerback in terms of long-term deal. You don't want to have to say, well, we can't quite match him up with Amari Cooper or whatever. I think really with Gilmore, it just comes down to he's at his best when he's playing man coverage and he can just look at a guy, regardless of the physical matchup. I think he's pretty smooth. He's got good recovery speed. So I think my kind of feeling was that you stick him on Cooper. It's when they've been playing those kind of zone coverages, especially at a bunch of formations, that Gilmore's had a little bit of trouble. And I mean, I would say the entire secondary has had their ups and downs, and that's what's been really disappointing. I think this year, when you look at some of their struggles, that they've definitely been better of late. But when you're seeing guys like McCourty and Harmon and Chung, these three safeties who all earned significant second deals, which again, kind of rare for the Patriots. Seeing those guys kind of struggle, that was kind of disappointing. And Malcolm Butler's been just so up and down. I mean, he's great one week, even from play to play. So if I'm the Raiders, I'm going to attack the secondary of the Patriots and try to challenge the Patriots pass rush, because I think if there's one thing that really hasn't been proven yet, is that anybody other than Trey Flowers can consistently get after the passer. That's the game you don't want to get into, is that, where they're just chucking the ball 50 times. And we've seen it happen. There's been some big play breakdowns from the secondary.
You mentioned Trey Flowers as a pass rusher. I'm interested to see what Ricky Jean-Francois can bring in another week. He's no world beater, don't get me wrong, but this is a guy I've liked for a couple of years. I think he can do a few different things well. Obviously, he was still assimilating into the system last week. He did get a few snaps. I'm wondering if he can step up and establish himself as that pass rusher opposite Trey Flowers. We know how important that role was last year. They haven't seemed to find a guy to plug into that hole this year with the departure of Rob Ninkovich. I think he can be that guy. I was surprised to see him floating around on the open market when the Patriots grabbed him. And I think this could be a good game for him. The Raiders' offensive line hasn't been the dominant force it was last year. And that's just one of the, it seems like a small thing, but if the Patriots can establish some pass rush from the backside, which they haven't done all year, and we've seen it, how many times does it seem like the Patriots have a quarterback locked up in the backfield and he escapes through the backside of the pocket and hits somebody for 20, 25 yards? It's been maddening all season. It's not just limited to mobile quarterbacks. Everybody seems to do it. If they can get some sort of push from that backside and start to contain the pocket and actually tackle the quarterback, believe it or not, and not just get hands on him. I know it's a novel concept. If they can actually start bringing the quarterback down from the backside, it's going to change this defense. The little thing could turn into a big thing. It's been the mantra of the Celtics all year. We've seen how that's worked. But I want to see if Francois can get it going this week. 2 weeks in the system. It seems like they've put a lot of work in out west at the Air Force Academy. I'm wondering how assimilated he is, how many snaps he'll get, and how productive he can be. I think we see a decent amount of him this week.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on the finish part. I mean, that's been a big thing coming into this season. Losing guys like Chris Long, Rob Ninkovich, those kind of veteran guys who always seem to make the big plays. And there's been a lot of turnover in the front seven. You look at Adam Butler, Dietrich Wise, who have really. They've had their ups and downs, like most of the people on the defense. As far as Jean-Francois, I wonder how much his playing time is going to be tied to Malcolm Brown. If Malcolm Brown returns, we saw him last week a little bit more in the interior, and I thought he did a good job. I thought it's hard for a lot of these guys to come in and kind of play the Patriots system in that interior spot where they're really asking them to two gap more and kind of hold their ground and basically instead of attacking the gap, attack the blocker. And I thought that he looked good in that role. We've seen certainly guys like Albert Hainsworth, guys come in that have the size and they just really can't quite do it. Terrence Knightley is the other guy who pops to mind. So they've got to get some production. And like you said, the pressure at times has been really good, but it's just been that finish and, getting that final guy who can really close it out. And other than Trey Flowers, we really haven't seen much consistency. Cassius Marsh is another guy who was out last week who you wonder if they can maybe get him back, who can contribute on the pass rush. But I think that the Raiders, if they're smart, are going to challenge the Patriots pass rush. And that's really where the game is probably going to be decided.
We didn't see Denver doing much last week, and that was kind of surprising to me. As everybody knows, it's been pretty well documented. If you don't, just to catch you up, the Patriots actually stayed out west. They went from Denver to, I think it's Colorado Springs, right, where the Air Force Academy is. They've been practicing out there. It's not the first time the Patriots have done this. They had a West Coast trip a couple years ago. One of the teams was the Chargers. I don't remember who the other team was, but they practiced out, I think, at San Diego State.
That's correct, yeah.
So Belichick going to that again. The Raiders, meanwhile, Jack Del Rio came out and gave an interview the other day. I don't remember where he was talking, but basically he under the radar kind of threw some shade at the Patriots, saying, well, I don't care why they're staying out west. We're just going to go down the night before. There's no need to kind of be away from home that long. Now, it's different going from Oakland to Mexico City as opposed to Denver to Boston back to Mexico City. That's quite the trek, but I like that Belichick stayed out west, and I think it makes a difference. I'm curious what you think, Mike, but I think it makes a difference. I think it's going to help them. The altitude, a lot of people you'll hear, especially going into Denver, oh, the altitude, people are just making it up. It's mountain out of molehill. It's not really anything. If you saw the pictures from Falcon Stadium where the Air Force plays, there's signs all over the stadium warning about the health hazard of exerting yourself at that altitude. I think, this is just, it's another case of chess versus checkers with Belichick.
I agree. I mean, I think anytime they get a chance, especially at this point in the season, to get out of New England, go on a little team trip, have just that kind of team bonding experience. It's always a really good thing. I thought the interesting thing I looked today was that Denver is, mile high, 3,000 feet above sea level. They went down then to Colorado Springs, which is 4,000 feet above sea level. And then they're going to go to Mexico City, which is 5,000 feet above sea level. So I can tell you this from personal experience. I played hockey against Air Force Academy when I was in college. We went there and played. We got off the plane. We went right to the rink, and we're skating warm-ups. And I swear to God, my feet just started killing me. It felt like they were going to explode. So I have firsthand experience that is very much a real thing. I think that the teams up there certainly use the signs to their advantage to remind teams, get in their head a little bit. And I saw some stuff this week, Belichick telling his team, I don't want to hear it. It's all in your head. I don't know if it's all in their head, but I think that's, look, I mean, there's a reason why the Olympic teams go there to train with that altitude. And, I think not only is it going to benefit the Patriots this weekend, but I think they're really going to be in good shape for the end of the season.
So that's a little bit of the preview there for Patriots and Raiders in Mexico City. You can join me for the Patriots pregame show. That will be 2:30 on Sunday, and you can catch that right here on the CLNS Media YouTube page. You can also catch the Periscope version on Twitter. Follow us at CLNS Media, at Patriots CLNS for our Patriots coverage, and check us out online at clnsmedia.com. Mike, before we wrap things up here, the Pro Bowl ballots did come out this week. The Pro Bowl itself, I'm not a big proponent of the Pro Bowl. I don't, football's not one of those games where you can play meaningless games. But the ballots are always fun for me. I filled mine out a couple times so far this week. The biggest thing for me, though, is that, and it's been changed since, but James Devlin was left off the ballot after that incredible third down catch he had from Brian Hoyer against Denver. I don't know how they can leave him off after that. Yeah. But it kind of led me down this line of thinking, and the Pro Bowl always does this for me because they have the stats on the ballots, and it's always kind of a reality check. You think players are having a good season, not having a good season. You see the numbers, you see where they're at. Is James Devlin the most under-recognized player in the Patriots in terms of how he changes a game? Because he does it without touching the football.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, it's going back again to the balance of the offense. It's like you almost forget about James Devlin, but I think the fascinating thing for me is with him, like they will not hesitate to run the spread offense with James Devlin out there. Most teams are watching personnel come into the game and they're like, all right, we got a fullback and Dion Lewis. This is probably going to be a run. And then all of a sudden it's a spread offense and, Devlin's just chipping the linebacker or whatever. So he does such a number of things for the team. And I mean, I think Belichick, every time he gets asked about him, gets a little twinkle in his eye getting to talk about a fullback. I mean, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, loved the fullback, the old Tom Rathman. I mean, that's just one of my old favorite parts of the game that, kind of has disappeared. And I mean, I think it's just another sign of how football is kind of cyclical. And, as teams kind of get away from the running back, away from the fullback, it kind of becomes advantageous to have one. And Devlin, it's just, he's going to be that unsung hero. I was happy to see that, the Patriots Nation made so much noise that they finally got him on the ballot. And he's the kind of player that you want to see get in the Pro Bowl. It's like, Tom Brady's going to have 52 injuries and he's going to tap out before it happens. But, he's the kind of guy that kind of recognition goes a long way.
I mean, he's one of the guys like Slater. This is one of my favorite stats, is that Matt Slater has more career receptions and yards in the Pro Bowl than he does the rest of his career combined, and people forget that. He was on, Nate Ebner wasn't, which was interesting as the special teamer, given how Slater's been banged up, and he will not play this week too, which the special team has been clicking, so that's going to be a big loss for them. But in terms of the Pro Bowl here, just going back, we'll get your thoughts, and then I'll go. one Patriot who you think will surprise people earning some Pro Bowl momentum, and one guy who going into the season you thought would be a guy who would be in the conversation who hasn't been?
That's a good question. Oh, Julian Edelman? No, just kidding.
I mean, if you want it, sure. If you want
I don't want to run that every I think one guy who's kind of an unsung guy right now, and I don't know if it'll translate to the Pro Bowl, but is Kyle Van Noy on defense. I mean, I think with the loss of Dante Hightower, you've really seen Van Noy kind of settle into the defense this year, and he's one of those guys where it's when he's we hear do your job so much, but he's one of those guys when he's not trying to do too much. It seems like the plays are really starting to come to him. And with Hightower out, he's been rushing the passer more. So I think he's going to get more of those kind of high-profile plays. We've already seen it with the goal line 4th down stop a couple weeks ago. He's starting to make plays against the quarterback. So I think we're going to see more and more of him. I think one guy maybe that I would throw out there would be Nate Solder. I mean, I think he's, we expect him to be one of the better left tackles, and he certainly has played better in recent weeks. And we know he's, got a number of personal issues that he's been going through with his family. And we hope his kid is okay dealing with what he's dealing with. But, he's one guy who's been a little bit of a disappointment, unfortunately. And it kind of comes at an opportune time, as we said earlier, with him entering free agency. And, I think that left tackle spot is a big question going forward.
So you stole mine for the surprise in. I think Kyle Van Noy's been the most underrated player on this defense. I'll go with a unit instead. I'll say the interior offensive line. You mentioned how Solder's been a disappointment. Those 3 guys in the middle, specifically David Andrews, have been outstanding this year. Joe Thuney as well has been playing, lights out football. We've barely said his name, which is good. So it's not AFC, NFC anymore. I know it's like some player draft or something, but I think if it was AFC, NFC, you could make a case that the starting interior offensive line for the AFC could be the New England Patriots. The guy I don't think is getting as much attention as I expected is Patrick Chung. I thought, given the moves the Patriots made in the secondary this offseason, keeping Butler, adding Gilmore, I thought Patrick Chung, we know the Patriots like to play with 3 safeties, was going to be able to play more in the box. I thought he was going to be able to rack up a lot of tackles, maybe a couple sacks, be among the top safeties in terms of tackles, be a force against the run. Now, it's not necessarily on him that he's had to play back more because of what's gone on with the secondary. He hasn't had those opportunities I expected him to have, but I thought Patrick Chung would be among the leading tacklers on the team and maybe even in the AFC this year, and just circumstance has kind of kept him out of that.
Yeah, I think Chung got a little bit of a slow start, and that was, part of kind of the whole secondary. I know they were, managing him at times. They were even, throwing Jordan Richards out there, giving him some of Chung's snaps early in the year. I think early on, he was maybe down about 10% of the snaps that he was last year, but it seems like it's, coming on lately as it has been for the rest of the defense. And I mean, it's just, it's a story that we see every year. And I mean, I think Chung is definitely one of the most underrated guys on the defense. And there's no guy, if they were to lose him, the complexion of the defense would just change instantly, because he's able to do so much, whether it's covering tight ends, whether it's covering slot receivers, whether he's playing back, whether he's playing up, he's a physical, reliable tackler. I mean, I think after the departure of Logan Ryan, really Patrick Chung kind of embodies that secondary play that they want, with the good tacklers, physical guys who, kind of have a presence. And, it's just been quite the story for a guy, who kind of struggled early on when they were playing more cover 2 early on in his career, went to the Eagles for a year, came back, and now he's a vital part of the program.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I did not think when Chung came back the second time that we'd be talking about it, 4 years later now, him being an integral part of the defense. The first Patriots stint, Patrick Chung, and second stint, Patriots, Patrick Chung, 2 completely different players. I don't know what he did in Philly, or maybe it was not succeeding in Philly, but completely changed his game and fits right in with this defense now. I don't want to come off as saying that he's having a disappointing season, because he's been good, but I just thought the numbers at this point would be a little better given the personnel around him. That's going to do it. Sorry, you want to have one more thought? Go ahead.
No, not at all. I mean, I would say, just on Chung, I think, I think a lot of it was scheme. And I mean, I think the Patriots went for more zone in 2011 to 2012 when they finally got Aqib Talib. That kind of signaled the shift of man, and they were just able to use Chung almost more in that hybrid linebacker role, and it just suits him better. And I mean, and the other big thing is he's just not getting hurt anymore. I mean, he always was dealing with injuries those first few years. He certainly had flashes. I remember that game down in Miami where he, I think, blocked a kick and returned it for a touchdown. He's had his plays. I've always liked him as a player. It just kind of all needed to click, but
we'll see if he can keep it clicking against Oakland. So that's going to do it for us here on this edition of Patriots Roundtable. You can follow Mike on Twitter for more commentary at Pat's Propaganda, right?
That's correct.
So you can follow Mike there. You can follow me at Real Alex Barth. Make sure you follow CLNS as well, at CLNS Media and at Patriots CLNS. Check us out online on clnsmedia.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for more of these. The next roundtable will be on Monday. We will break down the Patriots game, but before that, of course, we will have coverage for you throughout the day, Sunday, starting at 2:30 with the CLNS Media Patriots pregame show. All of you for that one, you can join us right here on the CLNS Media YouTube channel. Mike Petraglia will have you during the game. That's at Trags on Twitter. You can follow him for commentary throughout the contest. And then post-game, Mike and Marv will have you to break it all down. That will be right here as well on YouTube. And then the roundtable next Monday. So for Mike Dussault, my name's Alex Barth. This has been another edition of Patriots Roundtable. Thanks for watching, everybody, and enjoy that game on Sunday. I will talk to you at 2:30 then.